Ladies, you guys, welcome back to Unshakable with April Chapman, where we discuss all things social, cultural, political, and theological from a biblical perspective. I'm your host, April Chapman, and welcome to today's show. So today, we are actually going to review a very short clip from a Mother's Day service over down there at the Ebenezer Baptist Church, where the melanated Marxist-minded Negro and pulpit pimp and bivocational U.S. Senator Raphael Warnock serves as the pastor. This man stood in his pulpit, and I'm going to show you exactly how he serves double duty as two legs of the iron triangle. That's the black preacher and the black politician. I'm going to demonstrate to you, using his own words, how he is going to lie and manipulate his audience into doing exactly what he wants them to do, which is to vote blue no matter who, and to be addicted to the D. That's D as in Democrat. Get your mind out the gutter. But we're going to show, using his own words, how he does that. And then I'm going to flat out demonstrate how this man stood in his pulpit and told a bold-faced lie. Just lied to his congregation to make them believe that the will of the people has been subverted, and that the will of the people in the state of Virginia, it doesn't matter that they voted on a referendum that the Supreme Court said, we don't care what y'all voted on, we're just going to strike your maps down anyway. We're going to show how he lied about that. And it's wild to watch it happen in real time. Let's take a look here. Y'all, he's actually going to lie to his people. And this is the reason why the black community stays at the bottom, is because the iron triangle, the black preacher, the black politician, and the black civil rights worker, who have all been working in tandem in order to amass political power at the expense of black progress. Take a listen here.
Got some folks here I want to acknowledge. Some are running for office, some are in office. So, and others. Brandeis Marian School, where are you? 20 kids, young people from San Rafael in California. Where are you, Brandeis? Are they here? Stand up. Welcome. Give them a great big Ebenezer welcome. Commissioner Mo Ivory. She's currently a Fulton County Commissioner in District 4, and she's a candidate for chair of the Fulton County Commission and member of Ebenezer Baptist Church. Mo Ivory, good to see you, and your husband. Y'all pay attention to these races. Early voting has already begun. Raise your hand if you already voted. Don't lie now, you're in church. Raise your hand if you've already voted. Early voting, that's right, this is Ebenezer. Raise your hand if you're planning on voting this week. Planning on voting this week. Amen. All right, pay attention to these, all of these races. We got another race for the Georgia Public Service Commission. And that's important because you say, what's the Public Service Commission? Have you looked at your utility bill? They're in charge of that. They're the ones who kind of help figure out where that ought to be. And so it's a very important position. And here, accompanied by Dr. Gerald Durley, he brought his friend Peter Hubbard, who's running for re-election. Re-election. You were just elected, right? You and Alicia Johnson. And he's running for re-election. Pay attention to these Georgia Supreme Court races. So, Virginia, the state of Virginia, had a public referendum. And the people voted on a map. And then the Virginia Supreme Court knocked down the map that the people had approved. Pay attention. Stay woke. Know what's going on.
Okay, so the first thing I want to highlight here is this is the mind manipulation and the psyop that the black community has been under for the past 60 years. This is a US senator who serves bivocationally as a US senator as well as an apostate pulpit pastor. Don't forget that. But notice in his pastoral capacity, he is reinforcing to his congregation, did y'all vote? You know, early voting has started. Got to make sure you vote. So who's already voted and who is going to vote? The assumption is you're going to participate in this political process. And since I am a black Marxist Democrat, everyone here is a Democrat. And notice the individuals that he acknowledges in the congregation are all Democrats. And so they are there to make their appearance, to smile, wave, kiss, hug and kiss a baby or two. But the expectation is you're going to vote for these people. These are the people that are on our approved list of candidates. You don't need to research them. You don't need to know anything about their policies and what they plan to advocate. All you need to do is comply because I'm the pastor. I serve in this position of authority, even though I'm an apostate and I'm not even a Christian myself, but because I'm a U.S. senator and I'm an apostate pastor, you're supposed to listen to me. Raphael Warnock does not have to say, these are the people you're supposed to vote for. It is implied. Everybody knows in the black church the position of the pastor and the spiritual authoritative role that he plays in the life of his congregation. He does not have to say vote blue no matter who. He doesn't have to do that. All he has to do is give them that pastoral stare. Did y'all see it? He gave them the pastoral stare. Then he told them, you need to pay attention to these races. Not racist, races. And then he paused. That was a pregnant pause to say, this is the instruction. This is the cheat code. This is what you're supposed to do. Tells them to stay woke, right? Which is another dog whistle for vote blue no matter who. He acknowledges these candidates, tells everybody what district they're running for. They're all Democrat, by the way. He doesn't say, examine the policies of both sides and vote your Christian convictions. No, he doesn't say that. It is already understood who these people are going to vote for. And then here comes the lie. Oh, y'all, he lied, and I'm going to demonstrate to you that he lied. He starts talking about what happened with the Supreme Court and how the Virginia Supreme Court struck down the referendum. But he leaves out something very important. Let's play it back so we can listen to the lie, and then I'm going to counteract what he says with the truth. Take a listen.
Had approved.
Here it is, right here.
Map. Had a public referendum. And the people voted on a map. And then the Virginia Supreme Court knocked down the map that the people had approved.
He is lying. Or should I say what he is doing? He is purposely omitting the truth of what happened to lead his congregation to believe that it doesn't matter how you vote, that the Virginia Supreme Court is just rogue, and you, the people, spoke, and the Supreme Court said, we don't care how you spoke and what you want. We're striking down this map anyway. That is not what happened. So what I've done, I have taken the liberty to create a graphic. I created a graphic that I want to share with you guys. And just give me 1 second to get it pulled up here. I want to make sure all of it is seen. Take a look at this graphic right here that I created. Because what Raphael Warnock is doing is just flat out lying to you. Okay, he is lying. He is correct that the Virginia Supreme Court struck down the maps that Virginia voters voted on. But here's the kicker. The Supreme Court struck it down because the Democrats thought they were slick. They didn't think that fat meat was greasy. They attempted to pass new maps, and in doing so, they violated their state constitution. Let me explain. In Virginia, there is a legal way to redraw congressional maps. Let me explain. Got a nice little graphic here how Virginia's constitution draws out in outlines how it is supposed to work. So, Virginia's constitution requires that a proposed amendment, before you can just start drawing new maps, you have to get your amendment approved by the General Assembly, not once, but twice. It has to be approved with an election of the House delegates, and in between those two approvals is when the voters can vote on a referendum. It is genius the way the Commonwealth of Virginia has this set up, is because they want to make sure that the delegates that were chosen from the General Assembly have approved the measure. Then they bring it to the people, and then it gets it has to go. There is a 3-step process. So let's talk about it. First, they got to introduce the amendment. The General Assembly introduces a proposed constitutional amendment, and the General Assembly does this to give itself the authority to redraw the maps. After that happens, it has to pass in session 1 of the General Assembly. Right here, both the House of Delegates and the Senate must pass the proposed amendment. Step 3 is it goes to the House of Delegates for a vote. A general election for the House of Delegates must occur so that the voters can elect delegates who know that the amendment is on the table. Step 4 is it then they've got to pass it again in the next session. So they have to call another session in the next, or should I say in the next legislative session after the election. Both the House and the Senate must pass the same amendment again. This is the checks and balance that exists in the Commonwealth of Virginia before you can just start redrawing maps. Then, after those steps are done, the referendum is put on the ballot. The amendment is placed on the ballot at the next general session, and then the people vote on it. And then once the people approve the amendment with their vote, it becomes part of the Virginia Constitution. So this is what happened. Democrats, like I said, realized that they didn't have enough time for this to happen. And so they thought they were going to be slick and like, you know what, we're not going to pass this in the General Assembly. We're not going to do all of that. We're just going to put the referendum on the ballot, lie to the people and be like, we got to get this done now. And then hope that hope that nobody else challenges it and that it'll just pass. So the truth of the matter is Democrats had a legal road. They just didn't stay on the legal road because they're Democrats. All they do is lie. It makes it clear there was no deadline to introduce the amendment. However, the timing matters. It must happen before voting begins in the next House of Delegation election. This election is the intervening election that is required by the Virginia State Constitution. It must be the same amendment as in session 1. And it needs a majority vote of the people to be approved. Then and only then can the General Assembly legally redraw congressional maps under the new authority. So here's the problem. The Democrats, they passed the amendment in session 1 after early voting had already begun in the House of Delegates election. That means the election in between the two votes was not valid under the Constitution. Essentially, they tried to, what does it say? Fast track the process to get the new maps in place before 2026. That is not the proper way. What they did was unconstitutional. Essentially, the referendum was illegal. Did Raphael Warnock mention that? Did he say anything about that at all? No. He leads these people to believe that the Virginia Supreme Court is just rogue and that the will of the people who spoke in this referendum, which I believe was probably rigged anyway, and we saw some other Weasley ways that they were trying to rig this, he wants you to believe that the Supreme Court was like, we don't give a darn what you people want. We gonna strike it down. Did you see how Satan is so deceptive that this man, in his pastoral capacity and who is serving bivocationally as a U.S. senator, just lied to a whole congregation full of black folks? Because this is what they do. They are so desperate for power, and his ecclesiastical mandate, which he does not have because he's an illegitimate pastor, is tertiary and sits subordinate to his role as a political figure. This man is not just a U.S. senator, but he is a Marxist. And he is a functional atheist. He is simply using the pulpit for political purposes. I mean, it's what Democrats have been doing for decades, and they learned it from Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King tried to take over the National Baptist Convention for political purposes, because where else can you go to get access to that many black people all in one place around some shared common values? The church. This is why King did it. This is why Raphael Warnock does it. This is why Jamal Bryant does it. This is why Freddie Haynes does it. All of these black pulpit pimp, Marxist-minded, melanated Negroes, don't forget that part, they use the church for political purposes. These are not men of God. These are not faithful shepherds. That's the point that I'm trying to make. What the Virginia Supreme Court ended up saying was, listen, y'all know better than this. The Constitution requires the first vote to happen before the election begins. They didn't do that. And so because the Democrats waited until voting had already started, they violated the constitutional process. It's amazing how the people who are always screaming democracy are always the first ones to violate the Constitution in the first place. They violated their own state's constitution. And so therefore, the referendum was invalid and the maps could not be used. The bottom line, Virginia has a process. It is not optional. You cannot circumvent that process simply because you see that the time is running out and the midterms are upon us. If y'all wanted to do this, you should have started this process 2 years ago. You should have started 2 years ago. You started too late. That is not our fault. That is not our problem. And the Supreme Court was like, look, you do it the right way, then it is the people spoke. But that's not what happened. So here's the deal. At the end of the day, the Democrats had a legal road. They just chose not to stay on it. They could have introduced the amendment early enough, passed it before the election process started, let the voters elect delegates with full knowledge of the issue, and then passed it again in the next session, and then sent it to the people for a referendum. But instead, no, they tried to rush the process to get a Democrat-friendly map in place for the 2026 midterms. And the court was like, no, we're not going to allow that. So Raphael Warnock here is trying to present this narrative that the court stole the will of the people, but the court said, no, you cannot violate the Constitution while pretending to amend the Constitution. That is the difference that Raphael Warnock left out. He just let his congregation, he gave them this emotional bumper sticker version that, well, the people voted and then the court just took it away. That dark Clarence Thomas, like, listen, the truth is that Democrats tried to fast track a constitutional change and they skipped the required timing. And the court said, no, ma'am, no, sir, you need to read your Constitution and then try again. That is what happened. And so I simply just wanted to take the opportunity to make this video I'm actually going to cover AOC in a separate video, but I wanted to highlight in this particular video that the politician, the Black Marxist politician, and the Black Marxist pastor, who is not a real pastor, he's simply masquerading as a pastor to gain access to the Black community because they want to control the Black vote. These are some of the shenanigans that they do on the Lord's Day, on a Sunday. And these fake churches have all of the vestiges of Christianity, right? They've got an organ and a praise and worship team and a choir, and they use Christian language, but this is a den of Satan. They do not worship the Lord Jesus in this church. There is no possible way that Raphael Warnock can be considered a legitimate Christian pastor when even in his role as a U.S. senator and in his pastoral position, this man advocates everything that the Lord hates. He's always trying to sell you on gender affirming care, tells you that there's nothing wrong with being a pro-choice pastor and how it's not in violation of your Christian conscience. He's always voting for every policy that's going to make you more dependent and to look to the government as God versus telling you that as a Christian, if you do not work, you do not eat. He purposely misrepresents Jesus's mission here on this earth and tries to make it about feeding the poor and visiting the weary and the sick and the shut in. And it's fake compassion and straight up heresy, but they use the church as a shield for their political advancement. This man is no pastor. He is no shepherd. And he is up, not this year, but in 2028. He is up for re-election. And please believe it, I will be making lots of content about the pulpit pimp, melanated Marxist-minded Negro Raphael Warnock. Yes, I'm absolutely going to be providing the audience and Metro Atlanta and the whole state of Georgia. I'll be exposing how under your rule, how this state has become more godless, and the policies that you push and support is putting this state under divine judgment, because all you want to do is sacrifice more babies to Molech. But I'm curious to know, what do you guys think? Were you able to see the sleight of hand that Raphael Warnock employed here? How he just conveniently, in his pastoral capacity, led his congregation to the candidates that are approved, the vote blue no matter who, Democrat approved candidates. And then, did you see the sleight of hand? The way he just conveniently led his congregation to believe that the Virginia Supreme Court violated the will of the people by just striking down a map for no reason at all, without explaining to his congregation that, listen, up in Virginia, you know how we Democrats do. We try to pull a fast one, and we got to do things the right way, you guys. We violated the state's constitution. We didn't go through the proper process, and the state Supreme Court said, hold my beer. Y'all need to slow your roll. Go through the proper channels and do this the right way, and then the people can vote to amend the Virginia Constitution so y'all can redraw the maps. He left that part out. So I'm curious to know, what do you guys think? Do you happen to go to a church that emphasizes politics more than anything else? Because if you do, that is a problem, and you need to probably leave and find yourself a new church. But whatever it is that you guys think, leave me your comments down in the box below. And until next time, you guys, stand firm, stay bold, and above all else, stay unshakable. Grace and